Hi, my name is Susie Ochs. I'm the Senior Editor at Mac Life, but I'm here to talk to you Maximum Tech fans about the new MacBook Airs, because tech doesn't really get much more maximum than this. Apple just redesigned these bad boys last week. They're thinner than ever before. Taper from a hefty 0.68 inches on the thick end, or the thicker end, I guess, since neither end is thick, all the way down to a microscopic 0.11 inches at this thin little tapered end. I haven't tried to open an envelope with it yet, but you can definitely put it in a FedEx envelope and seal it up, which is pretty exciting, although not recommended. They both have full-size keyboard, as you can see, so you're not typing on a cramped little subcompact keyboard, and full-size multi-touch trackpad. The 11.6-inch model, the trackpad's a little shallower, but it's the same width, and I've been using this. It's still pretty easy to use. Apple programmed in their full multi-touch line of gestures, so both of these, of course. You've got one finger gestures for pointing, tapping, to click things, 2 fingers, 3, and even 4 fingers for moving between your apps and going forward and back on the web, things like that. Apple took some design notes from the iPad for this, so they're both aluminum unibodies. They've got integrated batteries. You can't get the battery out. You can't carry a spare. Apple designed the battery themselves. They're all flash memory based, which gives them incredible speed. This one's asleep right now, but almost instant on. When you wake it up, it just comes right back up because there's no spin up time for the hard drive. They don't have hard drives. Apple told us that they put the flash chips right on the logic board. We found out, iFixit.com did a teardown and found that it's actually an SSD-like thing, but it's a proprietary SSD. It's not the standard 2.5 or 3.5-inch SSD that you would find in a larger computer. It does have a mini SATA connector, but it's just they made a different size to fit in this really small case. The 11-incher has a 35 watt-hour battery, and that'll give you up to 5 hours of wireless productivity. And the 13-incher has a 50 watt-hour battery, so that'll give you about 7 hours. And they're both rated for 30 days of standby time. When you put them to sleep, they should last a really, really long time if you're not using them. Obviously, we haven't been able to test that yet because we've only had these for a week, so we'll let you know. Everything's sealed. The RAM is soldered to the motherboard, so there's really no aftermarket upgrades. Once Apple swipes your card and you've bought this, that's the way it's going to stay. They do offer, both these come standard with 2 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, and they do offer an upgrade to 4 gigabytes, which is the max either of these machines can take, for $100, which is pretty reasonable for Apple. They used to really gouge you on the RAM, but they've gotten a lot better about that. The screens are high resolution LED backlit LCDs. The 11-inch has a native 1344 by 768 pixel resolution, and the 13-incher is 1440 by 900. There's 16 by 10 aspect ratio, so the screen on the 11-incher is actually a little bit shorter than the iPad screen. The iPad screen is 9.7 inches, but it's at a 4.3 aspect ratio. So they look a little different, but when you're on the couch, it's kind of all the same. Each of these MacBook Airs has 2 USB ports, one on either side. That's a huge improvement over the original MacBook Air, which came out in 2008 and only had 1 USB port. And that USB port was also in this little flip-down trapdoor-like thing, so sometimes you'd get a connector that wouldn't even fit, so it was kind of useless. These are flush with the outside of the case, and you get 2, which is a lot better. You also have a built-in mic over here. You have a FaceTime camera here. They used to call it iSight, but they just renamed it FaceTime, because Apple's all about FaceTime now. The mini display port for video out, tiny right there. And audio in and out on this side too. The 13-incher also has an SD card slot, so you get a little expansion there, but the 11-inch doesn't have that, so keep that in mind. If you need an SD card slot, you got to go for the 13. Speaking of audio a minute ago, another cool design touch to these is that they built in a stereo speaker, but they put it below the keyboard, and as you'll notice, there's no grid or perforations or anything, so it's right under the keyboard, and the sound actually comes out through the tiny spaces around the keys, which I think is kind of a nice touch. Under the hood, you've got a 1.4 gigahertz Core 2 Duo processor in this 11-inch one, and a 1.86 gigahertz Core 2 Duo in the 13-inch. You do have a processor bump option for each of these for another $100, but they're all Core 2 Duo. They opted not to go with the Core i3, even though it's quieter and faster, so that's a little strange. But maybe, when they refresh these in a year, you'll get a Core i3. They each come with 2 gigabytes of RAM standard, as I said, soldered to the board, so we do recommend that you go ahead and max those out to 4 gigabytes of RAM, just to kind of give you a little more future-proofing, I guess. But then let's talk about what's missing. The backlit keyboard, which we enjoy on the MacBook Pros, is not here. The cool thing about the MacBook Pro is you can use it in the dark, and the letters on the keys will kind of glow for you. It's really nice. So I kind of miss that. There's no Ethernet port, which is strange to PC users. You can connect by 802.11 and Wi-Fi, of course, or you can get a $29 USB Ethernet adapter from Apple and connect to your Ethernet that way. No FireWire, no eSATA, no any other connections besides those USB 2 ports. And no optical drive. Apple sells a $79 USB optical drive, or they also have what's called remote disk, which lets you put a disk in another Mac's optical drive, and then you open up a Finder window on one of these Macs, and you'll see a little remote disk thing, and you can kind of borrow the other computer's optical drive, which is kind of neat. It's obviously a little slower, or any third-party USB optical drive will work. So you also have no moving parts, and there's no spinning drive, there's no spinning hard drive, so it keeps everything quiet and cool. The apps launch super fast because they're stored all on flash memory, and the startup is really fast too. When you wake it up from sleep, like you saw me do, it's almost instant on. They said that was another thing they took from the iPad. They liked how just turn it on, turn it off, and you don't have to wait for a long boot up time. But we do have trade-offs. This is not a full-size MacBook. The memory is the biggest restriction. It's capped at 256 gigabytes. The pricing, though, is also a lot better than the 2008 MacBook Air debut. When these things came out first in 2008, well, first of all, they only had the 13-inch size, so now we get 2 sizes, which is really fun. And the 13-inch original MacBook Air started at $17.99, kind of a lot. But now you can get the 11-inch with 64 gigabytes of storage for $9.99, which is the same level as the entry-level white MacBook, the non-Pro MacBook. You can get an 11-inch with 128 gigabytes of storage. That's what this one has. That's $11.99. The 13-inch starts at $12.99 for 128 gigabytes, or you can go all the way up to 256 gigabytes in this one for $15.99. So it's cheaper than the old MacBook Air by $200. Has all flash, so it's faster, it's cooler. Second USB port, it's still cheaper. Of course, those are at apple.com/MacBook Air. They have lots of tech specs and videos. They have really cool pictures of what it looks like inside here, because they're just really proud of their stunning tech design. And I'll be writing reviews of the Air for both Mac Life and Maximum Tech, so keep your eyes peeled for those, and thanks for watching.